Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, April the 2nd, 2025. That makes this the news for Tuesday, April the 1st, day 1133 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. Hey, PH. Hey, Daryl Roberts. Hey, Eli. How's everybody doing? I thought I saw Fitz come in too. I want to start by thanking the Patreon supporters who are, and other supporters. Hey, Jay. And other supporters who make my life in Ukraine possible. The supporters for this week are Chris Carter, Beatrice Bella, and Tony, Dark Irish, Jose, Lil Red Sunflower, Integral, and Jerry O. You guys are the sponsors all week for your outstanding support. Thank you. Ciao, bello. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Nicola Jones. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Darlene. I see the peeps are coming in. Sweden is in the house. Hey, Rusty. How's life in Nashville? Did your dog die? Your lady left you? And your mama's in jail? Hey, Donald Wright. Hey, Scotty. Hey, Jerrio. Munzi. Hey, Richard Prexis. Hey, Arn. So big thanks to the sponsors of tonight's live. And we will start with last night's missile and drone attack. The only thing is, last night was only a missile attack. Two guided cruise missiles of the X.5969 class were sent at the territory of Ukraine, and both were intercepted for a 100% interception rate. Now, the question becomes, quite rightly, I think, where were the drones? This was the first night. What's today? Today was April 1st, right? So that means 30 days has September, April, June, and November. So March was 31 days, January was 31 days, 62 days plus 28 days is 90 days. 90 days every single night this country in 2025 was pounded with, upwards of 100 drones a night. I think the lowest we had one night was 88. Where were the drones last night? Hey, Mandabear. Hey, Nightshade. Hey, Lars. Hey, G2. Where were the drones last night? What's going on? Is Putin stockpiling? Is he running low? Is this the pressure of the negotiations with the U.S.? What is it? We don't know. Nobody knows. My opinion is always, if Russia has the weapons, they use them. If Russia couldn't find enough drones to launch a salvo at Ukraine last night, that's good news for everybody. Or if Russia has decided that it doesn't have enough in any given day, that it's got to stash some away, build up a stockpile, that's good news too. Now, if they have plenty and they're doing it for some other reason, then that's disconcerting. Hey, Dan Ballard. So I'm in Kyiv. I don't know. I don't really think anybody outside of the Russian Federation knows what the stockpile situation is. Odessa had drones about an hour ago. I didn't see that. Interesting. So they are not out then. That's for sure. My buddy Yarrow assures me that they are never out. That the production lines, they've now got 3 production lines running inside Russia building the drones. And they're building about 150 a day of those Shahed lookalikes. So that's a lot of drones. Trump aboard Air Force One, talking to reporters, said that it looks like Zelensky wants to back out of the rare earths deal. And if he does, he's going to have big problems. Big problems. Big problems. Now, look, first of all, there is no rare earths deal. That is not a thing. There is a framework under which a rare earths deal might be constructed, but that's all there is. Furthermore, the deal that Trump sent Zelensky last week is not the deal that they agreed to when he flew to Washington. Trump has yet amended it again in favor of the United States. It is the worst kind of exploitation of neo-colonial economic coercion, something which the Budapest Memoranda strictly forbids the United States to do to Ukraine. And yet here we are. The absolute extortion by the greatest democracy in the history of the world of an emergent democracy trying to find its feet. It is obscene. Now, it's my understanding that the Ukrainians are rewriting what Trump has sent over, and they're going to present it to him. But it is I'm with everybody who's saying don't sign it. Now, look, I trust the Ukrainians to do what's in their best interest. If they can play hardball with Trump and get a deal that's worth it for Ukraine, then fine. Now, look, I don't think that's going to happen, right? Because I do believe that Trump is a Russian asset. I absolutely believe that. Everything he does, I don't give a shit. He asked the president of Finland, can I trust Putin? He knows goddamn well he can't. So it's nonsense. The whole thing is nonsense, in my opinion. But this treatment of Zelensky is outrageous by the Americans. Absolutely outrageous. And I keep hearing Republicans repeat these talking points that Zelensky started arguing with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was ambushed. The whole thing was a political hit job. I'm sorry, J.D. Vance wasn't ambushed. J.D. Vance did the ambushing. He was there to ambush Zelensky. There is no two ways about it. No two ways about it. And yesterday was the 3rd anniversary of the liberation of Bucha. For those who have been following the war, you know that Bucha was the scene of a dreadful massacre. The 5 weeks that the Russians held Bucha, they turned it into a living hell, where all of the worst impulses of the human race were indulged in the bodies of Ukrainians living in that town. Out of Bucha come hundreds of documented war crimes. And for those who lost people in Bucha and in memory of the 3-year anniversary of its liberation, I would like to offer my most sincere condolences at this time and assure you that not all Americans voted for Trump. A lot of us did not. Anyway, they didn't even have enough class to offer the Zelensky team lunch. The problem is these days having lunch in the White House means they're sending out for Burger King or McDonald's. So Egley asks, what is the general opinion of Zelensky among Ukrainians right now? So I would say, hey, Michael, I would say that the sign of any healthy democracy is a diversity of opinion. There are as many opinions about Zelensky as there are Ukrainians, in my experience. Now, in the current situation, though, it's like when somebody beats on your little brother. You know, you can beat your little brother every single day because he's your little brother. But some bully puts their hands on your little brother. You are pissed. And the Ukrainian people are pissed at the way that Zelensky was received at the White House and that ambush that J.D. Vance sprang on him. And my understanding is that his approval rating has gone from 52% to 72% now. I mean, right now, the whole country just lined up behind him. Even people who normally talk bad about him have told me, no, at this time we have to support him. Now, as far as Trump being mad at Putin, this is political theater of the worst sort. He's already getting Zelensky set up to take the fall for the failure of the ceasefire. Despite the fact that Zelensky's team delivered evidence to the Trump administration today, making it clear that it was Putin that broke the energy ceasefire. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, there are cities in the dark in Ukraine right now. There are no ceasefires here that the Kremlin is acknowledging. Yeah, you know, I wouldn't worry about hearing. Now, look, there's a lot of negative Russian propaganda about Zelensky, right? But if you listen to Ukrainian channels, you'll hear a lot of bad shit about Zelensky too. And in my mind, right, that's the sign of a healthy democracy. When in the United States did anybody ever have anything good to say about the president until we got this cult figure who absolutely demands bootlicking and ass kissing? Until before this, nobody ever said anything good about the president on either side of the aisle. I mean, my God, when I think of the things I said about George Bush, what I wouldn't give to have George Bush back. You know, and now, Egley, that is another thing, right? Oh, sorry, I got distracted there. Egley, that's another thing. The political opinions, I don't really know because I'm not around Ukrainians that left. I'm around Ukrainians that stayed. But there does seem to be a divide between them. Now, what that divide looks like, you know, it's, I don't know. I don't know enough about the Ukrainian community that left because, of course, I am surrounded by those who stayed. And they are still Ukrainians, absolutely. And believe me, lots of people here dislike Zelensky immensely. Immensely. Okay. Not near, when I think of the things I said about Bush, and now Trump is just so much worse, it's inconceivable. Anyway, one of the things that I'm watching, okay, Dave, please, everybody give it a rest. We're all friends here, right? We're all on the same side. Egley's, and I apologize, I know I'm not saying that right. But the gentleman's question was a fair and legitimate question, and it's been answered. And let's have another great show. It's showtime, folks. Something very interesting coming out of Moscow today. We got video of military police entering a gymnasium, making everybody lie on the floor, and then demanding paperwork from everybody. All men of conscription age who had not previously served were loaded on a truck and taken to a conscription center. Right? They didn't even have a chance to towel off, let alone take a shower. They were out the door. Now, this is important because until now, the forced mobilization of Russians in Moscow and St. Petersburg has been verboten. It's too politically sensitive an issue, right? And Putin doesn't want the political pushback from the political center that's in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Well, those days are apparently over. With his new conscription goal of 160,000 men, the military police are going into gyms, nightclubs, warehouses, anywhere that lots of young men gather, and they are taking them out by the dozens to be conscripted. Now, what kind of political pushback that's going to be in this new police state of Vladimir Putin's, where there is no YouTube, there is no TikTok, there is no social media, most of your VPNs are blocked. You can't get data outside the country that's not approved by the state. In that Russia, Putin's Russia, what's going to happen with this is unclear. Now, Dutch wants to know, what do you think about all the stuff from the USA to Greenland? Look, I try to be very fact-based in my reporting of what's happening on the ground. And clearly, the White House's handling of this is making enemies of our European allies, as well it should. Trump is basically announcing the beginning of a new age of imperial America, where if we want it, we will take it. Because that's what good democracies do in the world, right? Is they deny the sovereignty of other states and simply seize them to exploit their mineral wealth to line our own pockets. Come on, give me a break. So it's very disheartening to see it happening. I do take it very seriously. I believe that it is Donald Trump's. I have this crazy idea in my head. I have this absolutely crazy notion in my head that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin have had a conversation in which they've just split up the world, where Donald Trump will create the North American imperium under his emperorship. America, Canada, Greenland, Mexico, all the way to the Panama Canal. A North American empire built on what the American empire was built on: theft and slavery and the genocide of indigenous cultures. Meanwhile, Putin on the other side of the world will rebuild his army, rebuild his strength, and between the two of them, they will squeeze Europe until it is a vassal state of one or the other. It's the big squeeze. Now look, that sounds crazy. It can't possibly be right. I'm a crazy person. No one should listen to me. Kadyrov appointed his 17-year-old son as Chechen interior minister. Yes, he did. I told a Ukrainian on here that Ukraine should do a Russian version of the 70s show Good Times. Ah, Vincent, be careful. Nostalgia's a poison. We may not recover in our lifetimes, Debbie. I mean, I'm old as it is, right? And if America manages to dethrone this ersatz king, how long the world will remember our failure is anybody's guess. I don't know. Hey, Pugga Mahone. Anybody hear occasional clacking? I don't have any chickens here. Well, China's going to exploit anybody that's weak, right? Let's say that Trump becomes ascendant and the American empire starts to forge itself with Canada and Greenland before he starts to turn his attention to those other imaginary lines to the south. But Russia implodes, as it is likely to do, right? I don't believe there's any saving Russia at this point. I think Trump is trying. I don't think it will do any good. Now, when Putin is gone, as he will surely be gone sooner or later, there is likely to appear a power vacuum that will result in internecine warfare between the Chechens and the Dagestanis, between the Russians and the Tuvans, between the Russians and the Bashkirs, between the Russians, right? There's a lot of flashpoints for internal strife and lots of corporate entities like Gazprom that have their own private armies and will be using those armies to defend their infrastructure. As each little warlord tries to carve out a fiefdom of their own, that's also a possibility, right? I think there's every chance in the world that should such a thing happen, China will declare that for its own interests and in the interest of bringing peace to the region and to safeguard its investments in the Arctic, it will need to take what used to be northern Manchuria and all the way up to Siberia, where it's got all those investments along Lake Baikal. If that happens, right, regardless of what happens with the U.S. and Russia, if Russia implodes, the Chinese are almost certainly going to make that argument and send the boys in. It's definitely a realigning of the world order. And I wish I could say it was democracies versus autocracies, but we're seeing the subversion of our own democracy in front of our very eyes. Hey, Michael. You in Boston? You parked the car? You're not driving, are you? It does seem that way, Kelly, doesn't it? Now, look, we don't know, but I'll tell you where the evidence is. The evidence is in the Kremlin. And for the couple of you that are here visiting from St. Petersburg, and I know you're here, look, you guys, you got to get your get out of Russia free card ready. You know what we need. We need evidence of payoffs to Americans and Western officials. Who's been subverted by the Kremlin? We need evidence of Russian war crimes in Ukraine. We need evidence. Think about your own retirement. When Russia implodes into an orgy of violence, as competing warlords and gangsters compete for the less and less resources that are in your country, you're going to want to get out. You could have a nice retirement in the West, right? You could retire to St. Petersburg, Florida, if you just get the evidence out of the Kremlin that we need to put these guys in The Hague. And I don't just mean the Russians, I mean the Americans. There's plenty of Americans that have taken Russian money and are complicit in the subversion of our democracy. Tucker Carlson, for example. Donald Trump, for example. And who else? It's hard to say. Now, so get your get out of Russia card ready. Start getting that shit together. Find the evidence. That's what we need. And it will get you a nice retirement in Florida. If you go to your Tor browser and go visit my friends at Alphabet Soup, they will help you with everything you need to get safely out of Russia. But bring the receipts. Mr. Krasnov, exactly. Exactly. Okay. Now, look, guys, this thing with the Russian personnel shortage, right, where they're now actively conscripting in St. Petersburg and Moscow, says that the Russians are running out of people, right? Hey, Trav. Everybody, Hacky Sack Trav is here. Say hello. Says that they're running out of people. They're running out of troops. Well, we got good data today that suggests that they're running out of tanks, too. Satellite photos of the tank yards. Now, remember, guys, the tank yards in Russia are Soviet stockpiles. What the Russians have been doing is refurbishing old tanks and putting them out as if they were new. This, of course, means that the tanks have to be repairable, right? In 2022, the Russians refurbished 1,500 tanks and got them out to the field. The next year, 2023, it was less than 1,200. 2024, it was 600. 2025, they're refurbishing 25 a month. That's 400 for the year. That is not sustainable, and they're losing far more. They just hit 10,500 tanks lost. The United States only lost 11,000 tanks in all of World War II. So clearly it's a problem, right? And they can't keep up. It's an unsustainable process. Because, think about it, if you're taking old tanks out of storage to repair them, you start with the ones that need the least repair. Oh, this one's in good shape, just needs a new barrel. Okay, take that one. That means that what's left in the yards are the crappiest crap of crap. It's all fucking spare parts and scrap metal now. They're having to take multiple tanks and scrounge the parts out of them to put one back together. The process of refurbishing these tanks has become exhausting and cost prohibitive because they're just too shot what's left. So, what are we seeing? What are the effects of these tanks running out? Well, the T-72, the workhorse of the Russian infantry or the Russian mechanized brigade, the number of those seen on the battlefield is dropping dramatically. You almost never see a T-80 anymore. They're almost completely exhausted. We're seeing the emergence of these turtle tanks, tanks that the barrel doesn't rotate anymore. The turret doesn't move. So they box the whole thing up, trying to protect themselves from the drones. It's remarkably inefficient, these cope cages. We're seeing the Russians lead assaults on civilian vehicles. There was a bright aquamarine Lada caught in barbed wire outside of Pokrovsk this week. A vehicle completely unfit to purpose. Not what you need at all. Completely unfit to purpose. Not what you need at all. We're seeing the Russians try to armor Desert Cross buggies to make them look like tigers. Now, first of all, that's a 74 horsepower, 1 liter engine. How do you think it performs if you put half a ton of steel on it? Not fit for purpose. Desperate gambles by desperate men to try to keep themselves alive under desperate conditions. And it is not working. Now, tomorrow, it looks like the same thing is happening with artillery, but I haven't had a chance to really crunch those numbers. So those are the numbers for personnel. Those are the numbers for tanks. Tomorrow we'll do artillery. But let me also mention, what was I just going to say? Personnel. Personnel. March was the 5th worst month for the Russians of the war. Over 40,000 troops lost. 40,000 troops lost. There have only been 4 other months with troop losses in that range. And they've mostly been in the last 6 months. Now, 40,000 a month. The Kremlin can only recruit about 28,000 a month. That's a 12,000 man differential for 5 months. That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And it explains why the Ukrainians it does seem like the momentum is shifting out there. The Ukrainians are taking back Russian positions all up and down the line. When you look at the total area taken, I did a video today. I strongly encourage you to look for it. It's all about how much land the Russians really took this past year. It's negligible. And it cost them 427,000 lives. To me, it's insanity, right? Now, against this brutal backdrop, we see the Russian army devolving, right? They don't have armored cars, so they're running in on unprotected Ladas and golf buggies. And we just got video just before I came on here of an electric scooter brigade attack. All the Russians are on e-scooters. How would you like to be in that army, right? So against this backdrop of the Russians devolving, they don't, right, like a Mad Max movie. This shit, these turtle tanks, these appropriated civilian vehicles, they look like they're straight out of Mad Max. It's life imitating art. And then at the same time, where they don't have armored transport, we see them using donkeys, horses, and mules, and in at least one case, a camel to get the shit there. And of course, you know, the camel or the horses provide food as well once you reach your destination and there's nothing left to carry. Yeah, it's a sin, Maddie, I know, but you know, you're starving in a trench and you got a camel. I mean, Even if you keep kosher, there's a whole range of arguments that say camels are clean and can be eaten. Camel's good. It's not bad. Anyway, against this backdrop of the Russians devolving, the Ukrainians are innovating and advancing modern warfare in ways no one could have dreamed of. Could never have dreamed of. The latest thing that we found out about, and look, we only found out about it because the Russians already know about it, right? There will never be a time that I know anything that the Russians don't already know. It's just whether or not they'll admit it. Now, what happens in this drone warfare that the Ukrainians have been leading the world on is that sometimes drones fall behind enemy lines. They don't go off, they don't get where they're going, they hit a tree, a bird hits them, whatever, but they go down, right? Those drones are often recovered by the enemy, who immediately will flash the BIOS and reprogram the drone to their own needs. Now, flash the BIOS, that's a term that may not be familiar to everybody. What it means is that you replace, inside of any computer, any electronic device, there are chipsets, right? We call software that lives on a chip firmware. Some of that firmware is the basic input-output system, or system BIOS. So if I flash the BIOS, I delete all of the instructions that are there and I replace them with my own. Now, what the Ukrainians have been doing is they've been burning out the USB and communication ports that would allow the enemy to flash the BIOS. That means that if the enemy's going to use that drone, they can't load their own instructions on it. That means that whatever instructions are there will execute like the Ukrainians intended. Like, for example, as soon as the drone is powered up, it relays its GPS coordinates back to home base. Suddenly, the drone that you dropped in the woods out there is a homing beacon for where the Russian drone operators are, and you can call in St. HIMARS for a strike. And that's exactly what the Ukrainians have been doing. It's very clever, and it goes to the point that the Ukrainians continue to innovate modern warfare, while the Russians are just living in the 19th century. It's sad. World War III started on February 24th, 2022. Make no mistake. This is Czechoslovakia, and it's 1938. And you got to decide which side you're on. And unfortunately, Trump has taken America over to the Axis powers. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. We saw video footage emerge of a TOS-1A destroyed somewhere in the east this weekend. Those are those really awful thermobaric weapons that spray an aerosol, combustible aerosol, into the air before detonation, then light the air on fire, which will implode internal organs. I mean, it's a very unpleasant way to die, from what I understand. In Belgorod, on the new front line, since the Ukrainians are in Belgorod and Kursk these days, they hit an ammo dump, big explosion, loved it. We also saw the Ukrainians hit Engels Air Force Base again. They double tapped Engels. Remember last week they hit it and blew up 100 multi-million-dollar missiles, right? 96. Incredible hit. A couple months worth of missiles for the Russians at the current rate of expenditure. They hit Engels again, and there was another big boom. We're waiting on satellite pictures and confirmation from the SBU and GUR as to what was hit. We do not know at this time. Now, well, I think Croatia's worried about Serbia. Now, Serbia's having its own internal crisis. There have been protests going on there since November 17th, following a construction project collapse at a railroad station that killed 15 Serbians. And the collapse was the result of corruption in the government. So the president of Serbia has already resigned, but the real power is with the prime minister, who has not yet resigned. So we're waiting to see what happens there. That's a domino to watch. You got protests in Hungary, Slovakia. What did I just say? Serbia and Georgia right now. Lots of ongoing protests against pro-Kremlin loyalists. I don't know about the protests in Turkey. Those aren't against the Kremlin, the ones in Turkey. Drones are on the move tonight, heading out that way again tonight. Oh, toward Russia. Engels, Bryansk, Kherson, Oriel. Interesting, too. Okay. What else have I got? Oh, somebody asked about NATO getting involved here or the EU getting involved. Look, with America in Trump's hands, NATO is as worthless as the UN in Russia's hands, right? And we can't expect anything from NATO, I'm afraid, because of the subversion of the American government by the Kremlin. Now, what we are seeing, and this news broke just before I came live, it is my understanding that the military commanders of the coalition of the willing, those countries that are willing to send troops to Ukraine, which include France, UK, some of the Baltic countries, if not all of them, Canada, Turkey, and a few others, will all meet here in Kyiv on Friday. Now, I don't know what that means, because there certainly is no peacekeeping to do. There certainly is no ceasefire to uphold. So we don't know what they're doing here. Are they coming to handle border security? Will they send troops in to handle the Romanian and Polish and Belarusian border, freeing up tens of thousands of Ukrainians to go to the front? Don't know. We don't know what they're going to talk about, but they are coming here on Friday. Thanks, Odessa. It's my distinct privilege to be here at this time with you. I could be wrong about the Baltics. Happy, we'll get more info later this week. Yep, it'll include a lot of NATO countries, but it won't be a NATO. Yep, it'll include a lot of NATO countries, but it won't be a NATO operation. It's the coalition of the willing, those who are willing to send troops here. Mel, a no-fly zone would be ideal. Now, they've got British Typhoons and, for the first time ever, Swedish Gripens flying NATO air patrols out of Poland now. Over Romania, over Hungary. Hungary. Is Hungary NATO? Hungary's NATO. all over NATO airspace here, not over Ukraine, but over the countries that border it, certainly. So we'll see. Now, mind you, those same jets are flying as part of Baltic Sentry. So they're eyes in the sky over the Baltic looking for Russia fucking around with undersea cables, right? I don't believe that Russia wants to tackle NATO, no. That's why they do things, they do hybrid warfare attacks against NATO nations. But those hybrid warfare attacks have been ratcheting up to include things like assassination. And the countries that these attacks are happening in are less and less patient about it. As well they should be. Did you see the Sky Shield plan for 120 jets? I did not. Happy. I do not know what that is. What state are you in, Dark Hey, Dark Bamboos, long time no see. They are acts of war, Thomas, but it's hard to attribute them to the Russians, right? Because they use local actors. They hire local people. And that's a problem, too. Okay, we have about 9 minutes left. So again, let me please thank the sponsors of tonight's live. Longtime supporters, pretty much everybody. Chris Carter, Baria Trisabella. God, I hate that name so much. And Tony, Dark Irish, Jose Hernandez, Little Red Sunflower, Integral, and Jerry O. Thank you guys so much. Those guys are the sponsors of the live all week. I am taking a vacation. Next week, I will not be around. Starting on Saturday, so we'll have lives all week. And then starting on Saturday, I will be on vacation. I know, I'm very, very excited, Lil Red. Very excited. I have not been on vacation away with people I like in 2 years, fully 2 years. And it's been a long 2 years, I got to tell you. So next week, there are no live sponsorships available. However, I will be doing out and about videos documenting my merry trek across Europe. No sunshine and beaches, I'm afraid, Dark Bamboozler. I am taking a bus. Are you ready for this? Because I have no money, right? So I'm taking a bus from Kyiv to Amsterdam, where I will meet some friends. And I have a friend in Amsterdam who I'm going to stay with, so I don't have any hotel costs. But I am taking a 46-hour bus ride to get there and get back. I'm more of a cafe culture person, Thomas. And so I'm going to meet these friends of mine. Vacation is no good on your own, right? You got to have people there. And so I'm staying with a dear friend of mine who's got a place in Amsterdam. And I'm meeting some good friends there. So I might Pugga Mahone. I go to Berlin. The bus goes to Berlin. Then I transfer to Hanover, I think, or Maastricht, something. And then from there to Amsterdam. So, no trains. Very hard to get a sleeper car out of Kyiv with less than 3 weeks' notice. Very, very hard to do that. That's it, Mel. Or maybe it's Hanover. I'm not sure. I think maybe I looked at both, and I don't know which one I ended up taking in the end. I'm Look, I'm totally broke. So if anybody wants to help me with some spending money while I'm in Amsterdam, Dark Bamboozle, it didn't make any sense. The I couldn't get a sleeper car to Kyiv, and to go to Warsaw or anything is just out of the way. It's 15 hours to Warsaw. So I figure, look, for 46 hours, I just take the bus. Believe me, I looked. This is my best option that I could afford. And when I was done buying my tickets, I had $99 left to my name. So now, very fortunately, I have Arn in my life and Lars, not Lars Magny that everybody knows, but Lars from Encino Tech. Thanks, John. Who helped cover my travel expenses. That was a big deal to me. And I've already bought the bus tickets. It's the cheapest way to go. And I'm seeing it as an adventure. Just that simple. Okay? I'm not looking for a travel agent. I'm looking for people who will sponsor videos while I am away. So if you are a person who can send me a couple bucks so that I have some spending money in a very expensive city, I sure would appreciate it. And you will get video sponsorships while I am there. I'm sure that Ukraine would appreciate any Grave Hawks that the UK can send. As they run out of Patriot ammunition, those Grave Hawks are going to be critical to them. Thank you, Edward Fuller. Is the TikTok ban up next week? Is it that soon? Shit, just think I might never come back. This is your last chance to get a Patreon account and follow me on Patreon, which is free, right? It is better for me if you can kick me $5 a month. Stay out of the coffee shops. Pugga Mahone, why would I go except to go to coffee shops and museums and Boom Chicago? Doing all of that. Doing all of that, brother. Chef Deb, you're the best. Thank you, Sarah. Is the TikTok ban up April 5th already? Or 8th? But it's next week, is it? How about that? You might never see me again. PayPal's in the description, John boy. I sure do appreciate it. The brownies are magical. Which cathedral? Yeah, guys, I'm also like 4 people away from 1,000 followers on YouTube. You could be the person to put me into 4 digits. You're thoughtful, Dark Bamboozle. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you. The idea that I can ask these things and people respond is deeply humbling, and I hope it shows in the quality of the work that I try to do for you and for me and for all of us. Thanks, Chef Deb. Yes, they do, Daryl. That's why I'm going. Well, no, that's not why I'm going. If my friends were going to Rome, I would go to Rome. If my friends were going to Berlin, I would go to Berlin. Yeah. I mean, the reality is that as an American here in Kyiv, with no family ties here, no history here, on my own, it's a very lonely life. And really all I do is work. And that's great. I'm not complaining. All of you make it worth it, and you make it possible. And, I'm really appreciative. But it is 2 years now nonstop. And I think for my own mental health and mental well-being, I should take this week off. It's too good a chance. I have a place to stay. It's really just spending money and the transport that gets you. And I think it'll be all right. I think I'll manage okay. Thank you, Chef Deb. You do have to have time off, and 2 years is too long. The funny thing, Arn, about Amsterdam is that they have a trolley system. And the Doppler effect, the whine of the wheels as the trolleys start up, it does hit you like an air raid. It's a weird thing because the pitch isn't quite right, the volume isn't quite right, but when the train is starting up and approaching your position, it's really got the same sensibility of that siren at its start before it hits the peak. Yeah. It's a funny thing. I remember that from when I was there 2 years ago. Thanks, Bugger Mahone. Thanks, Eugene. Freedom doesn't last. Thank you so much. No, it seems like a small thing, right? Until you realize I have 100 Patreon subscribers. Everyone gives at least $5, right? Because that's the lowest level of membership. Well, right there, that's my rent and utilities every month. No, it makes a big difference, pal. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Final thoughts. Anybody? Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and the moderator team, Jay and Travis. Thank you, guys. Walter Williamson, how you doing? I am just about to call it a night. I am, Rusty. It's going to be nice. It's, the one time I left Kyiv in the last 2 years was to get my visa renewed in Warsaw. And that was just 4 days of sitting around, waiting for the visa, working out of the hotel room. Didn't know anybody, didn't have anybody to go for a coffee with, nothing. So it's going to be great to be in a great city with great people who I genuinely want to hang out with and who genuinely want me to hang out with them. So I'm really looking forward to it. Ooh, is it tulip time? Get the fuck out of here. I think you're right. Hey, Hobo. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice if I was in Holland for the tulips? Now, my buddy Martin, he doesn't live in town anymore. I'm not breaking any international laws for you, Michael. Plus, you live in Arizona where it's legal. Come on. Whatchamacallit? What the hell was I going to say? Oh, my buddy Martin. He lives north. He's retired now. And he lives north of Amsterdam, a couple hours, on a dike overlooking the ocean. I bet you it's all tulips up there. I bet you it's all tulips. No, Michael, the best genetics in the world are in the United States. Nobody does it like we do. I know they've got the hype because they were first. But no, the good genetics are in the United States. No two ways about it. Okay. There is no such thing as too much blue cheese. This is a myth spread by lactose intolerant people. Holland, Michigan. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I'm looking forward to a lot of fondue. I love a fondue. And from there, we'll see. All right, kids. Thanks so much. I really appreciate everybody. Thanks to the sponsors. And thanks to everybody who's going to help me have a good time next week. Cake Boy and Banjo. Fondue. Fondue bars are big in Amsterdam. You can get a nice fondue. All right, good night, everybody. Take care.